YouTube so that we're able to preserve this into the future. Whenever it thinks it's ready for this, we will get started. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and it's great to start our class on leading services, service leadership, becoming a shaliach tzibur, or a public ambassador, someone who leads the Jewish community in prayer. That is an extremely important role. It always has been an extremely important role in Jewish tradition. Let me first, okay, how do I want this to be the full screen? Yes. All right, Jane, are you seeing the correct, are you seeing the PowerPoint?
Yeah, the architecture of Jewish prayer.
Aha, okay, great. It's working. Excellent. Uh, Trying to get it for you and for everyone here. Okay. So, this first class is going to be about the architecture of Jewish prayer. We're going to have 5 sessions in our class, but uh, tonight and the goal of it is to get you ready to do leading prayer in our synagogue. Before learning how to lead prayer, though, it helps to think about what prayer is. In Hebrew, the word for prayer is tefillah. Its root, lehit palel, to pray, is reflexive, meaning it is something we do to ourselves. Prayer is not primarily about asking God for things, it's about self examination, gratitude, and connection. When we pray together as a community, we add another dimension. We remind each other that we are not alone. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote that prayer is meaningless unless it is subversive. By that, I mean, unless it seeks to overthrow the forces of callousness that make us comfortable with the status quo. That is the energy we want to bring into our sanctuary. A service leader is not a master of ceremonies. You are someone who invites a room full of people to stop, to notice, and to feel a connection to something beyond what they experience in their everyday life, something real. Every human being wants to know 3 basic questions, the answer to them anyway. Where did I come from? What is my purpose? And where am I going? The prayers surrounding, for instance, the Shema, answer these questions Jewishly. The blessing before it addresses creation and revelation. The blessings after it address redemption and protection. The Shema itself, at the center, is our declaration of relationship with God. Understanding this architecture, how we structure the liturgy of our service, transforms the service from a list of prayers into a coherent spiritual journey, which is your job when you lead prayer to be working towards. So we're covering why we pray. Move. As I mentioned, does anyone have any questions at this stage? It can be about the Hebrew, it can be about prayer itself, it can be about your role.
Lahit Hallel, where's the root to ask Frina on Sunday?
Hallel is the root.
Okay.
No worries.
Oop.
Oh, you 1 second. There you go. If you want, there you go. So if we're talking about our service, and we're talking about, again, when we're praying, especially in our evening service, one of the largest sections has to do with the Shema U'Virchotecha, the Shema and its blessings. Everything in our service rotates around liturgy, and there are sections. Service is multiple points. One second, I'm just going. There we go. Okay. So when we're talking about prayer, you may have heard these terms before, but the thing to keep in mind, the heart of prayer, the tension at the heart of prayer, I've written here, is keva, which is the written word, the liturgy, the fixed structure. This is the order of prayers, the choreography, whatever the ritual is, the pages, the Hebrew, what we put on the cue sheet, what you're going to put on the cue sheet. It's an architecture. And it's why our service often looks so similar. If you come to services once in a while, you're like, oh, maybe it was a little different because the rabbi picked this one instead of this one. We read a reading instead of singing Ahavat Olam, whatever it was. Maybe you don't notice. But if you come every week, one of the things you'll notice is that mostly it doesn't change. There's a comfort in that, both for the person who is a part of the prayer you are leading, and of course, for your comfort in leading prayer. For the most part, we are sharing the same prayers every week. Now, there's variation, and we will go over the next few weeks, picking and choosing and how we decide, especially when we get to the cue sheet in 2 weeks. We will go over how you choose what goes in and what doesn't. But for the most part, the ease of it is that the same things generally go in. The other side of prayer, this is by far the harder part, and it's something you have to bring to it. Because the liturgy's been there for over 1,000 years. You don't have to worry about that. Anybody who comes into our shul knows you're going to chant Chatzi Kaddish. You know why? Because Jews have been chanting Chatzi Kaddish for almost 1,000 years. Not quite, but you get me. The thing you bring is the kavanah, to kavein oneself, to orientate, direct oneself, essentially, is the root of this word. Kavanah means intention. It's the inner direction. Kavanah is the intention you bring to prayer. It's the feeling in the words, the presence you bring to the room. Sorry, I gotta mute. It's what turns recitation into prayer, and a functionary service into an encounter with the divine. That's the harder part, because your job is to feel in equal measure to the liturgy you present. Now, I have a question for you. How do you show that how do you show keva when you put together a service? When you're leading a service, how do you show keva? How do you do honor to this part of the tension when you're leading prayer? This is the easy one. So the answer to this question is easy.
Maybe with introductions or personal thoughts about the prayer.
Oh, you're getting ahead. You're getting ahead, Jane. Oh no. Again, you made it too hard on yourself. It's easier than that.
It's just what's written.
Exactly. Yes, Rachel got it exactly right. How do you bring the keva to the service? For the people online, I dropped the Mishkan Tefillah on the table. It came. The party came. It's came in a box. It's already ready. The keva, it was brought to the service by you correctly. Now again, that means, unlike some of our other friends of other religions, our service that you plan to lead can never be a big, everyone come up and talk about God with us, and everyone come up and share their feeling about. Nope, that's never going to be a Jewish service. What else? There are a number of things it can't be. But the good thing about the keva is there's specifically something that it can be. It says, I'm sorry. It says you can't hear anything. I am very sorry. I don't know what to do. Jane, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. April, I'm not sure. You may want to try uh, muting this tab and then opening on YouTube, which it should be streaming live on. You may have better luck hearing through that than you do through Zoom for some reason, which I cannot begin to fathom the technological reason for that. Okay. So that's how you bring Kevin to the service. How do you bring Havana?
That's what Jane said.
Some of the things that Jane said are really good. Thank you. We're just delayed for 3 minutes, James. Thank you. But some of the things are how you introduce a prayer, the thoughts you bring that help guide someone, how they should think about the words. The words may be 1,000 years old, but you are going to drosh on them. What does that mean? You're going to interpret. You're going to explain them to the community. So you won't just say, and now we will recite the Shema or the Baruch Hu. That's the easiest one, right? Now we will do the Baruch Hu. Okay, you could do that. If you say, now we will do the Baruch Hu, please rise, and then everyone does it, and then you say, please be seated, you did Keva 1,000% right. You couldn't have done Keva. Keva was done. The prayer was done correct, then we're good. But that's the part of it that is tension, is that it's not just doing that, right? It can be easy. It doesn't have to be complicated for everything. Sometimes you do want to give like a minute or two, or you just want to talk about how someone might think about a prayer. But you've heard me do it too, where sometimes it can be just as easy as giving a general direction, telling them what the prayer is about, telling them what they should be thinking about while it's happening. This is the Baruch Hu. This prayer is our call to worship. Maybe you write one more sentence about what it means to be called so that we can all be together in community while we worship God together. Just by doing that, you have introduced a new thought. You have given them intention. In this case, the intention is to be called to be in community together, worshiping God. You said maybe 10 words, maybe less even. Could probably be done in less. But in those 10 words, you made the difference between please rise on page whatever for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu, we did it, and then please be seated. You made all the difference. You went the extra 90%, well, 50%, let's say, but still, you went the extra huge percent with maybe even 10 words. That's the tension of it. And now when you choose to say more or say less, remember, one of the obligations, and we will get to this, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but in subsequent weeks, but one of the obligations of someone who is shatz, who is shaliach tzibur, who is leading services, is not to place a stumbling block before the community. When you learn how to lead services and you learn and you want to do the best you can for your community, and that's all wonderful and praiseworthy, sometimes you're like, this is a special, I want to do this really special recitation of this chant that I heard on YouTube or, whatever, that I really think I can bring this. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes you're doing that for you. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's not, if it's not something the community is going to know, if you can't connect them to it directly, maybe leave it out, right? Maybe say less when you could say, sometimes you want to say when you introduce the Baruch Hu, we just use the Baruch Hu, so I'll say more about the Baruch Hu. Sometimes you want to say 10 words, and that's great. Sometimes you want to speak for 2 minutes about it. Maybe you have more you want to say about the Baruch Hu. Maybe it's a moment in which you feel that people have to be called to something greater, whether it's doing something in service of their people or their community or whatever, and you want them to feel called to do something, and you want to speak about that for more than for a minute. There's a tension there, right? You can do that once or twice in a service. You can't do it every time. You do it every time, the service gets too long. Now, we'll get to what the length of a service should be. There's a lot of leeway there. Some people I learned from a stand-up comic / rabbi in South Carolina that said that his people would throw him out if he ever went over an hour. And to be fair, that was South Carolina. I don't know what that means even really, but still. Yeah.
Well, how do you choose the words that should go in the keva of the rabbis? How do they? Because I do notice a similarity, but there's a huge amount of writing in the Tanakh. I mean, 150 psalms and all of that.
I am that can be the next class, Sam. I promise.
Oh,
we can do how the prayers came. I think I've done that class here a couple of years ago. I'm happy to do it again. How the prayers came to be. I might even be able to go a little bit into some of that, but for the most part, here what we're trying to do is how you can lead them. If the history of how a prayer came to be helps you, I'm happy to connect you with the resources that can, there are many resources, and I'm happy to make as many of them as available to you as possible. From Ritual Well, which is a website where people come up with prayers and rituals and whatnot, and various repositories of readings and things for that can be useful as alternative readings, things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I ended up there. Okay. Okay. Thoughts and questions before I move on. Okay, third of the way through and we're moving. So just to understand the day. Now, you are very unlikely as a service leader in this community to lead any service other than that one. Mariv, sorry for Jane can't see what I'm pointing to on the screen. Neither can anyone on YouTube, I guess. So yeah, Mariv. Shacharit. Now, if you're doing a bar bat mitzvah, some of the people here are intentionally doing this so that they can be prepared to lead for bar and bat mitzvah. For that, most of the time, that's a shacharit service. So that's not what we're mostly going to be talking about in these classes. The classes we're doing here are really mostly going to be about Mariv. They're going to be about Kabbalat Shabbat, Mariv, our Torah service, and our concluding prayers, which is how we structure our evening service. The main thrust of it, which is also the main thrust of the morning service, are Shema Uvirchotecha and the Amidah. Shema, its blessings, which begin with Baruch Hu, and end with Hashkivenu in the evening, and then the Amidah, the main prayer. And then we generally do sermon and whatnot. Remember, if you lead services here, it doesn't necessarily mean that you could give the Devar Torah or the sermon if you wanted to. But we also have other people who like to do the sermon who don't like to lead services. So if you're someone who's like, I really want to lead services, but I'm a little apprehensive about giving the drash, the good news is you can lead the service without giving the drash, just for the record. We can hook you up with someone where they'll do the drash, just so you know. Okay, so this is how our service is structured here in at Temple Beth Shalom. Our service is 4 sections, essentially. Now, it is very unlikely, I'll start just by saying, for you all, it's usually 3 sections. Most of the time, almost every time, unless you, I know Daniel can chant Torah, unless you're someone who can chant Torah as well, it is unlikely we will schedule you to lead a Torah service. because someone in the room has to be able to chant Torah, and most of the time I'm the only person who does. So most of the time the Torah service we do every month is done, but we do one Torah service a month on Friday nights. And if you are interested and you know how to chant Torah, you can be scheduled to lead a Torah service. The Torah service itself is more complicated. We will get into that as part of understanding the liturgy of our evening service here. The first, as you see, we've got a little, Kabbalat Shabbat, where we're welcoming people into the room as well as welcoming Shabbat into the room in the person of the Sabbath bride. We transition with Chatzi Kaddish to our evening service, which I just explained to you is Shema U'Virchotecha and the Amidah. The Torah service exists after that. In any event, this is also where you'll find Misha Berach. If we don't do a Torah service, Misha Berach is the only thing you essentially do here. And then we have our closing prayers, Aleinu, the Mourner's Kaddish, and Kiddush. Any questions on that before we dive deeper into each of these categories? Categories. Okay. Kabbalat Shabbat. So if you're putting together a service, keep in mind I do have page numbers here. Again, I can send you this PowerPoint specifically, but Kabbalat Shabbat, at the very least. Now, again, there's a little bit of leeway. You don't want to do too much, but if your service, services generally, we want them to land between an hour and an hour and a half. If you do the bare minimum that I present, your service will be an hour. If you add in a song here, a song there, that's okay. We can also, I'm happy to consult with you and to work with you on your cue sheet so that you're not, so that you're not feeling like you're flying blind. You don't know how long a service will be. You really want to throw in this prayer and that song and this other reading, but you're not sure if that'll be too much. I can guide you on that as well. But this is the basic framework. Generally, we do an opening song. Often that opening song will be on page 128 or 129. These are in your prayer book. They're identified as songs of Kabbalat Panim, or essentially that means a welcoming face, but really it means reception, that people are coming in. And this is really a good way to start your service. You can start it before you start talking. You can introduce it. That's what I usually do, is I will welcome everyone and then I will introduce the opening song. There is another way that is more theatrical, in which you can have the soloist. Usually you'll be leading with Stephanie and Hurst. You can have them do the opening song and then you can introduce yourself and the service. But before or after the opening song, you want to make sure you introduce yourself and what you're doing there, that you're going to be serving as prayer leader for this evening. After that, you will call someone up, which is usually assigned by the office. If you're leading services, you'll be informed who this is. It will also be written on the announcement sheet, which will be on the bima when you come to lead services. And this will be the candle lighters. The candle lighters and the people who do Kiddush at the end are usually the same people. It will be identified as such on the announcement sheet. So the candle lighting, people come up, they do basically whatever they want. Generally they will do an English reading on page 121, which you want to say that they're going to do. And then they will do the blessing itself, but then you and the soloist, or primarily the soloist, if you're not a big singer, will lead the congregation in singing the candle blessing. You usually want to do at that point the Shabbat Shmooze. I've got that at the bottom, but you usually want to do that now before L'chad Odi. Sometimes you want to do another song between candle lighting and the Shabbat Shmooze. That's totally fine. But you really want to also do this Shabbat Shmooze is something that we do here, in which you give people the opportunity to, people show up at services often as we're beginning. And so we want to give them the opportunity to do Kabbalat Panim, not only to welcome Shabbat, but to welcome each other. And so Shabbat Shmooze is the opportunity to engage in that part of Jewish tradition, to allow them to to greet each other. Then we can do Lachadodi. I like the imagery of doing Shabbat Shmuz leading into Lachadodi. And you can even explain this to them if you want, but I don't usually. That when we do Lachadodi, we're welcoming the Sabbath bride, is the traditional ritual of the moment, is that it's like a wedding. And we're welcoming the Sabbath bride. And at a wedding, usually people are kibitzing and whatnot right before they sit down for the wedding, right? Well, in the same way here, it's good to do the Shabbat Shmuz and have them kibitz a little bit before they sit down for Lachadodi, before the wedding, so to speak. Again, it's the theatricality of it. After you do Lachadodi, if you're going to do anything else in Kabbalat Shabbat, the only thing really left for you to do is Shalom Aleichem. I don't have that on here, but if you want to do Shalom Aleichem, I used to do Shalom Aleichem a lot. That comes after Lachadodi, but before Chatzi Kaddish. Chatzi Kaddish is our dividing line, and it's what breaks from Kabbalat Shabbat into the evening service. Chatzi Kaddish in every Jewish service that you'll see, whether it's Reform or Conservative or Orthodox, Chatzi Kaddish serves one purpose. Chatzi Kaddish serves the purpose of being a transition. Chatzi Kaddish, obviously, like all versions of the Kaddish, is not written in Hebrew. Just worth noting, in case you want to say this. This is as part of, an introduction. Sometimes it's fun to weigh in on the fact that one of our oldest prayers, and this prayer that we use as the break point between different services that we do all as one evening service, kind of, is actually in Aramaic. It's not in Hebrew. It's a fun relic of history. That's a good thing that you can make sure to you can say if you want, but that's the point. After we do the Chatzi Kaddish, at this point we're running through. We're doing Baruch Hu, and Baruch Hu is part of Shema Uvirchotecha, which is Shema and its blessings. But we do Baruch Hu, and I separated that out because there's a couple things, and we will get into what requires a minyan. But the Baruch Hu is one of those things that requires a minyan. I will give you the list of the prayers that does. We have never missed a minyan since I've been rabbi here. It's for a small community. That's a good track record. If you somehow do miss a minyan, you will have, thanks to this, the list of prayers that you either do silently or omit from the service if you do not have a minyan, because these prayers are required. In this synagogue, under my leadership, a minyan is defined as 10 Jews over the age of 13 of any gender. This is one of those things where it's like, this is, I guess, the best point to put in. As a service leader here, this is part of why I do these trainings. You're leading B'Shem Uvrishut, as we would say, in the name and in the authority of me. And so I set the ritual bounds. In that way, what do I mean by that? I mean, even if you consider yourself more machmir than the rabbi, which Baruch Hashem, great if you are, that's fine. It is not your prerogative to introduce a mechitza, a gender divider. It is not your prerogative to radically change the liturgy. It is not your prerogative to not count women for minyan. These are things some of these decisions are ritual decisions, and therefore I make them. So just that's just a disclaimer we can throw in anytime, so I'll throw it in now.
I have a question.
Yes, question.
Thinking back to when we tried to have morning services,
Yeah,
there were, well, most of the time, we just.
not a minyan, yeah.
Now, you said that there were some that would be silent or omitted,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Is there any chance, as, I don't know if this makes any sense, but compared to the morning service,
Yeah.
there won't be any reason that we would have to say, okay, we're not gonna have the service today.
No. We would do a service on Friday night regardless. We have to read our Kaddish list at least one. I mean, we have to say Misha Berach and Kaddish essentially. If we don't have a minyan for Kaddish, we still essentially say Kaddish. We just do it differently. which I can go over. But we have to go through those things. That's just something we do here. To be fair, I don't anticipate you'll run into this problem because I've been here 4 or 5 years and we've never had the problem. Is it possible? It is, and that's why I'm going to tell you about what to do. But I don't anticipate you'll actually run into it. For Shema and its blessings, these are basically what you make sure you want to throw in. You can do readings in some of their places. Things like Ma'ariv Aravim and Ahavat Olam, our prayer for the evening and our prayer for the relationship between God and the people of Israel through the giving of the Torah. These are prayers that you can do a reading on the facing page. So they're on page 148 and 150, but on page 149 and 151, there are alternative readings you can do instead that also end with the Hatimah. Does everybody know what Hatimah means? Do you not anybody not know what Hatimah means? Thank you for being brave. That's wonderful. It's great. I'm glad I get to explain it. Hatimah means seal. And the Chatimah in any prayer is that last line. It ends Baruch Atah Adonai. So for Ma'ariv Aravim, it's Baruch Atah Adonai. This is an easy one. HaMa'ariv Aravim. Right? Blessed are you, God, who makes it become evening. Essentially, it brings on evening. We say.
No.
I'm just so like the Chatimah. That's like the oomph part that you want to make sure you deliver. So if you do the reading, you do the English translation of it, that's fine. Do the Chatimah in Hebrew. People will join you because they know that's the important thing to do in Hebrew. Doing the reading, doing an alternative reading in English is fine. Doing the Chatimah in Hebrew is the important thing. The most important is very important when you don't do the whole prayer in Hebrew.
Is
Yeah.
all of this still in the introduction, or have we moved to phase 2?
We're in the second. We're in
Okay.
this. We're in this block
That's what I
now.
thought. Yeah, okay.
We're in that block now.
Okay.
We're in the block 2. So those you can do alternatives for. Shema. And we will get, again, some of these things I'm not going to cover so much now because next week, for instance, we're talking all about movement. So I'm not going to go into right now all through when do you rise, when do you sit. We will talk about that next week. I promise you'll be sick of it then. But for now, we're not going to go into exactly when you stand and when you don't. Sometimes I might mention it, sometimes I won't. Shema and Via Hafta, generally, you can have them sit. Generally, we have them stand through Via Hafta. Micha Mocha, Prayer for Redemption, always a good one. Lots of fun tunes. Ashkivenu. Most people are going to read this. If you have a song leader who knows how to do a good version of it, great. Make sure they know it ahead of time, no matter who it is, because not that many of our song leaders do Hashkivenu all that often. And Vishamru. Now, Vishamru, you don't have to do Vishamru. You can do Yismachu. There are 2 options on page 162. Normally, you would do Yismachu in the morning, or when you're doing Torah, and then you would do Visham because you would do Vishamru because we do Vishamru on Friday night during the service. When do we do Vishamru on Saturday morning? This is like a quiz to something I never taught you.
So Yom Kippur.
No. On Shabbos morning we do it, but we don't do it during the service. When do we do it? We start Kiddush with it. So after the service, when you do Kiddush, you start Kiddush with Vishamru on Saturday morning. But during Friday night services, you do it during the service. And that's why that's why it goes here. So generally you'll do Vishamru. That's why I only wrote Vishamru. Yismachu is more for the morning, but you can do Yismachu. It's allowed. They give you a heads up. Okay, anything else about Ma'ariv? The core, the Shema being the center of it, and of course the Amidah being the major prayer of our evening. Okay, let's see what's coming next. Okay, so we won't go too much over Torah service because it may not come up for you very often, but it's worth talking about when included. every congregation around the world, for the most part, there are weeks where that's not true, but for the most part, every congregation is reading the same thing each week, which is nice, and it binds us to communities around the world. And it's a tradition that has never stopped since Ezra and Nehemiah brought the Torah back from brought the reading of the Torah publicly back from Babylon. There's a lot of movement to this, which will be covered, but there's a lot of movement to this. In your book, it starts on 362, and it does not include everything on those pages, but it includes the things that are listed here. Yeah, you're very unlikely to encounter it, and that's something where if you want to lead a Torah service, we'll probably have to go through the motions of it. We'll probably want to do a rehearsal just to get you feeling comfortable with it, because it's one of those things that requires a lot of movement. We do a figure eight hakafa through the sanctuary, and it is very nice, but it's also very complicated. So you'll also do, if without a Torah service, you will do Misha Berach in that block. So what we just covered, page 371, Misha Berach, the prayer for healing, that's what you will do then. I chant a version of Misha Berach. You've heard me do it before. You've been with services, you've heard me do it before. You've probably heard nobody else ever do it before. That's not probably true, but maybe it could be true. The tune is a tune I learned at Hebrew Union College when I was Gabbai coordinator, and it serves very well for offering a blessing when you don't have the tune for Debbie Friedman. If you're me and you can't sing, here we have someone to do that. You do not, on the top of page 371, have to chant this like I do. You can if you want, although if it's going to stress you out, I strongly, strongly recommend that you just have the soloist sing Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach in the middle of 371. You can read the names on the list. The order is when you do Misha Berach, just so you know, you say, we are doing Misha Berach. You say Misha Berach lecholim is our prayer for healing. Don't say Misha Berach is our prayer for healing. Why?
We don't ask for things.
That's a good answer, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. Because many prayers are called Misha Berach is the answer. In fact, if you look on literally the facing page, Misha Berach la'aliyah is literally on the other page. So don't just say Misha Berach, this is our prayer for healing, because you'll sound silly. Because you're saying Misha Berach just means may the one who blesses. Misha Berach lecholim is may the one who blesses bless those who are sick. Lecholim, the ill. So you want to say, if you're going to use the Hebrew, say Misha Berach lecholim. Or you can say, Misha Berach is a fun shorthand we like to say, but please understand that when you're leading services, you don't want to do shorthand if you can avoid it, because you know enough to use shorthand. There may be someone in the shul who maybe they're starting conversion with me, or something. Maybe this is the first time they've ever stepped foot in a Jewish synagogue before, and they are not going to have any idea what you mean by shorthand. You don't want to use shorthand if you can avoid it. That's my note on that. So Misha Berach, you introduce what Misha Berach is. You read the list of people who we have in the community. Again, it will be on the bima for you. It won't be a test. You'll read the list of names. It's also in the handout every week. You will then invite people to share names aloud. You can do this in different ways. You can say, as my hand passes across the room. I don't like that one because it feels like I'm like trying to be Moshe or something, and I don't like that. I say, as my eyes meet yours, because it allows me to make eye contact with each person and to give them a little bit of a nod to say, I understand that you're thinking of someone who's suffering and I'm with you. That's something I like to do. You can do it however you like. The important thing is to give the people a chance, without them all shouting out names at once, to offer names that aren't on the list. That's not that hard. Again, it sounds much more difficult than it is. The first time you do it, you're going to trip over your word. Here's the other thing. I just want to say, anyone who leaves this at the end of 5 classes and is like, this is wonderful, I'm going to lead a service. That's great. And also, you're going to trip over your words in your first service. It's going to happen. There's no chance you won't. Don't let that stop you. I did it the first 10 services when I was a student rabbi. It was literally my job as a student, and I still tripped over my words trying to introduce stuff and whatnot. It took 10 services before I stopped doing that. So I guess what I'm saying is give yourself at least 10 services before you think you should be able to just speak off the cuff the way you would speak to anyone in any group of people. Like I'm speaking to you now, and you can speak that way from the beginning. You might get there, but like the biggest problem people who do this is they go, oh, well, I'm not as good as the rabbi on the very first time I did it, so I guess I'm no good. It's a little insulting to me, I would say. None of you said it, so nobody's insulting me here. But like, it's like it takes a lot of time to get to be even decent at it. So, like anything, practice. Anyway, that's my pep talk. Okay, so after Misha Berach, after you give them the opportunity, after the soloist sings, then you'll generally at this point when we go over the cue sheet, you'll see this, but that's generally when the sermon happens, announcements, these things happen in this part. After the sermon and announcements is when we get to the concluding prayers that are here. Aleinu, there's a lot of movement there. You're facing the ark. We'll get to that. Again, with some of these things, if singing is not your strong suit, or if you're feeling just nervous about it at first, there will be either Brendan Howard or Stephanie will bail you out. If you say, I'm not sure that I know every da 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 of the Amidah or the Aleinu, and you don't want to sound like an idiot, they've done it 100 times, more than that, way more than that. And they can take the vocal lead on those prayers until you feel so comfortable as that you want to lead the chanting. Again, your role as shots is to direct. It's not to be a star, right? You're not doing it because you're saying, listen to how beautifully I chant and how, no, you're doing a service for the community because somebody has to do it. And unfortunately, I'm out of town sometimes. Which, by the way, if it was an Orthodox synagogue, if it was different size synagogues, I wouldn't be the one doing it. It's just like here we have this this need and this opportunity that converge just like this. Okay, after you do after the announcements, after Aleinu, once again you have people sit down, mostly because we want to give the opportunity for mourners to stand. With the Kaddish, this like the Misha Berach, there's a list. We want to just how you introduce Shiva, Shloshim, and Yartzeit are tricky words. When you start doing it for the first time, you're going to want to say something like, anybody on the list of Shiva, Shloshim, and Yartzeit? Or something like that. I know, I'm only saying this because that was my instinct when I started leading services. Please understand 2 things. 1, people who are suffering a loss, those categories mean a great deal of distinction. Shiva is not Shloshim. Shloshim and Yartzeit are very different. We want to honor each of those categories. So when I introduce it, what I say is we now remember those in the period of mourning of Shiva, and then I read those names. Again, they're separated, bolded by the period. So you don't have to do work here that's, you're not going to have to write stuff down. And then I say, and in the period of Shloshim, the 30 days, not because people might not know the Hebrew number Shloshim means 30, but because we want to make sure we're emphasizing that the 30 days is a specific period of mourning. And then I say, right, and for the period of the 30 days of Shloshim, and for those observing a Yartzeit, right? Because we observe a Yartzeit. We're not in a period of Yartzeit, right? That's just saying it in a way that honors the experience while being correct, I guess. So again, Jane, do you have a question? Was that a, oh, no? Okay, okay, great. Anyway, so that's just to separate those categories and do that. People will do that. You'll do the names, you'll get people, whether it's a hand, whether it's eyes, however you want to do it. There are other ways online, I'm sure. I've never used them, but there are other ways. After you get the names, then you invite people to stand. In the Reform community, there's something that's traditional to say, which I'll teach you. It's not what I say, but they usually will say in the Reform community, we now invite everyone to please rise in honor of, you can say in honor of those who we've lost, or in honor of the departed, or in honor of those we mourn, whatever you want to say. The tradition in Reformed communities is normally, which you are welcome to do this because it's a Reformed tradition, is to invite everyone to rise. And by the way, here, everyone's going to rise anyway. I know that when I say, every week I say what I'm about to tell you. Every single week since I've been here, I've said the exact same thing. And not once has anyone said, well, maybe one. There's this Orthodox guy from Pennsylvania who brings a class once a summer. And he comes and davens here for some reason on Friday night with us. It's very nice of him. And he stays seated if he's not mourning someone. Because it's not, anyway, my point being, most people are going to rise anyway. What I say is, for those who are in a period of mourning, or for those whose custom it is, I invite you to please rise. Why do I do that? I do it because, first of all, this is me being a little more machmir. This is just my slightly more traditional upbringing, where if you weren't mourning, you didn't stand. Now, I'm not saying you should encourage people to change I'm not encouraging anyone to change. That's why I add the second part, for whom it is their custom, because the Reform custom is that everyone rises. And that way it invites people so that they don't feel uncomfortable doing what they already do and want to do. I invite them to do so as it fits their custom, which, by the way, is a traditional thing to do. Observing minhag hamakom, or the tradition of the place, is an incredibly important part of Jewish communal life, stretching back well over 1,000 years. And sometimes means things are a little looser in some places, even in Orthodox communities. So again, this isn't novel. After Kaddish is done, you'll invite people to be seated, at which point you'll do the closing song. After the closing song, and that can be any number of things, on the back towards 625 or so, when you got Adon Olam and Yigdal and Ein Kelohenu, those are the classic closing songs. You can also go with Od Yavo Shalom and Eilach Handalivi and Lu Yehi and all the more modern ones. What's the Menachem creditor one everyone likes? Olam Chesed Yibaneh. That's what it is. Oh man, do they love Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Oh, they love it. Okay. So you pick a closing song. Again, Kiddush, you invite someone up to do it. They'll probably read all the English. And then Mekadesh Shabbat, good for them. Whatever they read, it doesn't matter. When they finish, you and the soloist do Kiddush with the community. And then you do bread. And you do a little kibbutz with the bread, right? You ask somebody who's up there to take the thing off. If there are any kids in the room, you invite them to come up and have first piece. Ron Skrnopsky's going to pretend he's one of them. You can't let him up there. It's fine. It's your prerogative. I hope he doesn't watch this. Anyway. And then, so they have bread. And then generally you just want to give a short, it could be anything. It could be have a restful Shabbat. It could just some kind of benediction that's quick that wraps up and we're done. Any questions? There are going to be many, I'm sure, but you can also, this is not like a class where it's like there are no tests and stuff. If afterwards you've got a question and you didn't think of it, and 3 days from now you got a question, email me, text me, whatever. I'll I want you to succeed. This isn't some kind of problem. Okay, just so you understand a little bit, just in case anyone isn't totally caught up, and this is an important thing for us to have. The cast of characters. This is everybody who's going to be up there. You are the shots. Shatz is an abbreviation for Shaliach, the Sh, and the Tza, Tzibor, Shatz. Shaliach Tzibor. You're the Shatz. You're the public ambassador, messenger of the community. Your job is to lead the community in prayer. The Talmud insists that the congregation accepts that these are the rules the Talmud gives. This is who can lead prayer in a community. They have to be only three things. They don't have to be rich. They don't have to be powerful. They don't have to be smart. They don't have to be any of those things. They have to be, one, someone the congregation accepts. We're not that picky. They got to be Jewish, essentially. Number two, familiar with the prayers. If you're here and you don't know how to say any of the prayers, I humbly suggest you make that your life's priority at this point. If you want to be ready in 5 weeks. Just because, you need to know how to say the prayers. You don't need to know how to do everything beautifully, but you got to know how to say the prayers. And third, someone who's humble in spirit. Somebody who's willing to take on what's an important task and understand that this isn't about them, but how they can serve as a conduit between the community and God. And that's a tough role, but it's also a really honored one. And it's not that tough. It's tough, but it's not something that's beyond you. As I wrote, many of you fit that description already. Other roles in the room. Okay, to be fair, if you're leading the service, the rabbi's probably not going to be in the room. We can work on it. If we find a day and you all are just amazing and you all want to lead services for, whatever. Also, to be fair, when we first start you out, you have the option, and in fact, we may require you to lead with me or one of our other established service leaders, just to get you ready. So yeah, I might be there too. A chazan, we don't have a cantor, but we have musical leaders. Gabbai, that's also me. Haha, it's Eddie Murphy. It's me in multiple roles. The Gabbai is also me. The Baal Kare, that's usually me too, but Daniel can also do it, and a couple people can do it. And then again, if you're doing a Torah service, the Magbia and the Golel, or the Magbiha and Golel. To be fair, we've never. Jane Green, who's here online, is the only Magbiha I can recall us ever having since I've been here at this synagogue. Magbiah is a man who lifts the Torah. Magbiha is a woman who lifts the Torah. Golel is a man who dresses the Torah. Golelet, you can guess it, is a woman who dresses the Torah. Those are the people who are in the service. Okay, do I need 10? Here are the prayers that require a minyan. If you're doing the Baruch Hu, the Kiddusha in the Amidah, I'll get to what that means in a second. All forms of the Kaddish, that's the Chatzi Kaddish, the Kaddish Shalem, which we don't do in the Reform movement, but the Kaddish Shalem, and the Kaddish Tom, the Mourner's Kaddish. All versions of the Kaddish cannot be said out loud without a minyan. A public Torah reading. Anyone who's been here when we tried to do that on Saturday mornings without a minyan remembers what we have to do. You can't read from the scroll, but you can if you really desperately want. You cannot bless it, and you can you can chant from the Chumash. From this. This is a Chumash, a book of Torah. But you can't say the blessing, but you can still chant Torah if you want. You just can't bless it. So it's not officially a public Torah reading. And you can't use the Torah. And the communal Kiddush. You can't do Kiddush. Again, what do all these things have in common? This is a test. Again, not something I've given you the information for yet, but
They're blessings to God.
close. There are other blessings to God that you can still say out loud. Kiddusha, Kadesh, Kodesh, holiness is imbued in each of these prayers. In Baruch Hu, obviously in the Kiddusha, it has the root there, Kadesh, 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 right? The root is in these words. These are prayers, because of their imbued holiness, they have to be said with a holy community, a Kehillah Kadosha, a minyan. So we can't do any of those without a minyan. If you don't have 10 adults, for Barhu, you will skip it. For Kiddusha, for the Amidah, you will do a silent Amidah if you have no minyan. In other words, you will still invite everyone to rise. You will still turn and face the ark. And then you'll recite it silently. Nobody will speak. And then everyone will sit down when they're done. All forms of Kaddish. The only exception to that in this community is Kaddish Atom, the mourner's Kaddish, which we will invite people to offer names for. If there is no one present recalling Kaddish, sometimes I will skip it. If sometimes I'll do it anyway. There's an obligation of not putting a stumbling block before the community. This is a small community. If for some reason someone who needs to say Kaddish is being prevented because, hey, it's a small community and once in a blue moon we missed a minyan, that is a stumbling block that we will not, that we won't put up with. So we will say Kaddish, the Kaddish Atom in that circumstance. The communal Kiddush we will also skip if we don't have a minyan. Any questions on minyan? Again, 10 Jewish adults. That doesn't mean they had a bar mitzvah ceremony. It just means they turned 13 and they are Jewish. And they just have to be in the building. That means if they're puttering around in the kitchen, they count. You don't have to say, come in, and you're not, like, you can.
It can't be online.
You can't be online.
Not online.
No.
In the building.
When the owner,
It counts.
Right, as long as you're in the building, it counts. The other thing is, okay, this is if you have 9 Jewish adults, you can count the Torah as 10.
Really?
Yeah. So if you get to 9, you can go ahead. If you don't get to 9, there's no trick that'll get you there. To be fair, the Orthodox rule is, just for so everyone knows, in case it's your comfort, and it's your leeway on this. If you get to 9, the Orthodox rule is a child with a Torah on their lap counts as an adult, as the 10th adult. We just do it without the kid. We just count the Torah anyway. But you can't count 5 Torahs. You catch what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't need to put a Torah in the lap of a child like the Orthodox do, but they also have the same get around. They just need a kid to have it sit over their lap, and then they're like, it's an adult, kind of. We did the same thing. It's fine. Again, it's 9. It's a really tight leeway. 8, no, there's no amount of Torahs on kids' laps that's gonna get you there. Okay. So if there are no other questions, as we're coming towards the end now, just a reminder that the service isn't just Keva that we're just doing. We're not just doing a collection of disconnected prayers. It's a spiritual journey that you're leading. That begins with Kabbalat Shabbat, with arrival, continues with Shema V'Yirchotecha, with Barhu, with declaration, continues with Torah, with sermon, and with Amidah, with reflection on the past, on God's power, on holiness, and ends with hope. Aleinu, which speaks of our redemption, and Kaddish, which speaks of a God that loves us beyond death. It's up to us to lead the people through this. Somebody's got to do it. Any questions?
When are you gonna have this out to us? Cause I'm missing a lot.
If you just send me an email tonight and I'll respond and email it to you. Anyone who wants the PowerPoint after any class, just email me and say, Rabbi, send me the PowerPoint, and I will respond with the PowerPoint.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Thank
It
you.
may not be till tomorrow, but I will respond with the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
I've read that the Amidah has 8 or even more parts. We don't do all of that, and the Orthodox don't like that.
No, that's not, no. Just to be clear about the Amidah has 19 blessings, and it's not that we don't do all of them. You only do 6 of the 7 if you count Kiddushat Hayom as separate from Kiddushat Hashem, but you only do 6 of them on Shabbos, because we don't do the middle ones, the other 13, which are considered bakashot, requests, because it's considered audacious for us to request things of God on Shabbos. So if you come here and you pray with me on Monday morning, which nobody does, but if you want to, and I'm here, I'm sorry, Mondays I'm off. Tuesday morning, sorry, Monday is my one day off a week. If you come on Tuesday morning and you want to pray with me, we can do all the bakashot. By the way, they're in here. If you go to the weekday morning service at the beginning here, look, if you go to 77, you'll see you'll see that there's 3 blessings and then a whole list of them and then 4 more. And that whole list of them in the middle of the bakashot, they're in there. Now, a couple of the words are changed. We don't pray for, the wrath of God to be poured out over the hearts of the wicked. Yeah, that's a traditional phrasing that we just don't use. But the bakashot are in our prayer book. They're just not on Shabbos, so I don't talk to you about them because you're going to be leading prayers on Shabbos for the most part.
Those the ones that have the very similar tune that in the morning service.
No, that's the Nisim B'chol Yom. Which is Shabbos and weekday, which has where you're like Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Matir Asurim. Yeah, that's Nisim B'chol Yom. Those are the prayers for daily miracles, and those are Birchot Shachar. But we're not getting into the sections of Shachari right now because I don't want to confuse you. Because Shacharit has its own sections that are separate from what I taught you. 3 things that would be helpful for you to do this week. If you can make it to Shabbos, I actually won't be there. This is my week off, my last Shabbos off of the year until July. But you can come, notice when we stand and sit and how someone transitions. Again, it'll be a good chance for you to see how it's Deborah Edelman Dolan leading the service this week, and she's led the service many times. So it's a good chance for you to see how someone who is not me leads a service, and you can then in future weeks compare it to me and come up with a style that fits you. Also, open Mishkan Tefillah. If you don't own a copy of Mishkan Tefillah, you can take home the copy that's in front of you. But I do say, if you take it home, please bring it back next week. We cannot lose any copies of this. I brought these from upstairs. Is the reason I'm saying this. But it says read ahead, but I haven't sent you anything for ahead, so there's really nothing for you to read ahead. Just try and think about Keva and Kavanah. Wrote here, Keva gives you the skeleton, Kavanah gives you the soul. Bring both. Do we have any questions?
I have one, but
Yes.
kind of takes us back a few.
It's okay. What's up?
Back to the quorum section.
Yeah.
I'm puzzled. You mentioned all of those things have holiness
Yeah.
as their subject. How is it that someone in a different part of the building who may or may not be reciting the same prayers as us count towards the meaning? Why is that?
That's a good look. I understand from where that question comes from. Again, there's a desire when it comes to Jewish community to strike a balance between making things doable and making things too hard. And we don't want to make things too hard, and we don't want to make things too easy either, right? If I wanted to make things too easy, I would say people online count. That would be the easiest way. We could, right? They're paying attention, but we don't count them. In the end, what we are choosing to prioritize is that someone chose to come to this space and be a part of Jewish community. And by choosing to be here, even if for the first 10 minutes of the service they're setting up oneg or something, they've chosen to come and make community with us on Shabbos. And so we count them. And we don't count the person who, not that I don't see the argument for counting the person online who cares but couldn't make it. But that's the tension. We have to draw a line. We want to include the people who care about this community and not be burdened by saying, no, don't set up the oneg. You got to run in the room. So we have 10 in the room for that's not Jewish. We don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. That sounds horrible. And we're not going to be so lenient as to just say, yeah, sure, 7 Torahs and there's 20 people online probably. Who cares? Let's just do that. We're not going to do that either because that's too lenient. And Jewish tradition has never been about being too machmir, too strict, or Karl Roche. Too lightheaded, too simple. It's always been about striking that what Maimonides called the derech be'emtza, the middle path. And this is how that rule is how I choose to split that particular baby.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Why do we only do
Yes.
verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 of
Thank you. Yes, good question. Okay, so for Lechato D, we do here, you'll hear me say every week, which is traditional for us. We recite verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. The answer is a little esoteric, but I'm happy to get into it. Truthfully, it is deep down a theological debate. Lechato D can be found on 138, 139, is that right? Am I right? That's just like living in my brain.
139.
Yes, okay. 138, 139. So we do 1 and 2, you got that. Verse 3. Mikdash Melech, Ir Melucha. Right? We've got Kumitz Tzi Mitoch Hahafecha. This is a verse about redemption. It's also a verse about what? Let me give you a hint. In the next one, it says, Al Yad Ben Yishai Beit Alachmi. At hand is Bethlehem's David, Jesse's son. We don't do that verse either. Verse 6, Lo Tivoshi Velo Tikalmi. An end to shame and degradation. Again, redemption. A vision of imminent redemption. And then 7, 8, same thing. 7 is the redemption. 8 is again about who? Al Yad Ish Ben Partzi.
Oh, no.
It's not about us. Well, if it's
Mashiach.
about, thank you. Yes, it's not about us. If it's about one of us, then, whoo boy, it's about Mashiach. It's about the imminent coming of Mashiach and about how we want Mashiach personally. The son of Jesse, the son David, Jesse's son, his offspring. We want the Messiah to come, and the reformers were theologically troubled by the physical imagery of a person Mashiach, when they had said that we didn't envision a Mashiach, but rather a messianic age. So they cut it out. Now, I've only done it 3 times in 5 years, but I've done the full Lechato D before. You can if you find a music leader who knows it. Brendan, I know it a little bit. Brendan knows it a little bit. I don't think Stephanie knows it at all. So it depends on who your music leader is. You're not forbidden from doing the full Lechato D. I like the full Lechato D. I went to a conservative synagogue when I was in rabbinical school where we did the full Lechato D. Just know that some of the tunes we do to Lechato D will not work for all the verses. So if you pick a tune, make sure it's one that works for all, or that you can flop between tunes for the verses that aren't covered, because not all of our verses will work with that liturgy. But that's a good question. Are there any other questions before I turn off YouTube? All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube, and thank you